Yep, my name is Dr. Farah Khan. My professional address, I currently work at Wrexham Park Hospital in Slough, Berkshire. My address is 23 Minton Avenue, Norwood Green, Southall, Middlesex, UB2 4HW.
And what post do you currently hold at that hospital?
I'm currently a GP VTS Year 1.
Now, if you look please at volume 4, which you should find somewhere in front of you. If you would turn to page 1383, please.
Yep.
That's your submission. Is it true to the best of your knowledge and understanding, and do you wish it to stand as your evidence for the Commission?
Yes, it's true.
Can I ask you first of all, just to help the Commission with a little bit about your practice and your specialisations, please?
It's okay, so I'm doing a Masters in Public Health at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Previously I was working in medicine and surgery at an SHO, so ST1/2 level. Hence I worked at St Mary's in Paddington, Charing Cross, Ealing, all over the area, and Northwick Park as well, and both in surgery and medicine. And now just because of, I don't want a career gap, I'm doing GP training.
Do you have direct experience of working in A&E at any of those hospitals?
Yes.
Which ones, please?
Ealing, Northwick Park, and as in once the patients come into A&E, they refer on to the surgeons or the physicians, and I've been both a physician and a surgeon. So I've seen patients come in that way.
Just in terms, first of all, with Ealing, can you give us a flavour of what A&E at Ealing is like, please?
It's incredibly busy. You've got lots of patients coming through the door. You've got lots of people who have mental health problems. That's like one shift I remember, a patient with mental health problems jumped in the river. So you've got lots of really sick people. We've also got a very fluid immigrant populations. People come from all over the world, mainly Somalia in Ealing. So you've got a lot of mixture as well, and you've got lots of interesting pathology. So they come with very sick problems.
And what perhaps about can you tell us about the A&E composition at some of the other places, for example, Northwood Park?
Well, compared to Ealing, it's quite far away. And again, it is also still very busy. You still have a large number of people who go and see this. The area that these A&Es cover are quite large, and as we've got an aging population, people are getting sicker and they're coming with more problems, and their illnesses aren't just one tablet, go home. They're going to come with problems that will need acute medical beds, maybe an ITU bed, and they will need more work than, say, someone who's 23 with a cough.
Now, obviously you've said that you studied health economics. On that basis, can you help us with why it is you say that merging A&Es may not actually provide better outcomes?
Well, I've brought my book, it's in my bag, it's from the London School of Hygiene, it was updated maybe a year ago, and we've got years of evidence, not 1 year, not 2 years, maybe 20 years of evidence from the States and worldwide, which shows that hospitals, the best number that they should run in is about 300 beds. When you merge hospitals, this is a bad idea because then you get inefficiency and it's inequitable. So you have both problems running side by side. And it's not something I've made up at 31. This is evidence, of numbers of years that go ahead of me.
Now, in terms of Ealing specifically, and in terms of the A&E, what do you say would be the impact of, it's been variously characterised as closing or changing it. So what do you say will be the impact of that?
Well, as I've detailed earlier, we've got a highly immigrant population. We've got lots of people that come abroad, come back, move around. We've got a huge mental health centre, and also because of previous policies, we've got a large number of people with mental health problems that live outside of Ealing Hospital. Closing or changing the A&E will be detrimental. I'm lucky. If I got sick, I'm a doctor. I can go to one of my friends. I can see someone privately. I'll get an appointment within maybe 10, 15 minutes. When you've got someone who's very vulnerable with no money, very little education, Ealing Hospital A&E is their lifeline, and I think by closing it, by changing it, by making them go on, a long journey to another part of London, will probably kill them effectively.
Now, in terms of the unit which is going to be replacing the current A&E, variously described as an urgent care centre or still as an A&E, what's your understanding of what services it will provide?
I'm not entirely sure because, as I'm sure most of the people in this room know, everything changes every week, especially with the general election coming. You know, we get a new story, new theory, new idea. So I'm really at a loss, and I genuinely think what we should do, and I hope what this commission finds, is the necessity to keep our A&Es open, especially at Ealing.
If there is an urgent care centre at Ealing and it is not co-located with an accident and emergency department, which can take, for example, blue light ambulances, what do you say the impact will be on the local population?
I think it'll be incredibly detrimental, you know, because a lot of people don't realise when a hospital doesn't have some services. You know, I have personal knowledge where we don't offer in certain hospitals maternity services, so you have pregnant women who turn up only to be turned away to give birth in the car park. So when you do, you know, remove A&E from a place and make it urgent care, if someone came in off the street, not with a blue light ambulance, with a cardiac arrest, you know, you've got a very short window of something to do with them. And I think it's going to be awful because the most vulnerable people are the ones that are going to suffer. They're not aware of what they can have in what places.
Now, if Northwick Park has an expanded A&E, does that not fill the gap that you're talking about?
Completely not. So you're saying if I had mental health problems, I'm a paranoid schizophrenic, I now have to take somehow 3 buses to this place with no money. I then, by the time I rock up, have maybe a window of 5 minutes to be seen by someone and recognise that I've got an acutely unwell problem. And, you know, and there again, so if you're merging places, you're going to have a large volume of patients with the same number of doctors that are then going to be listed to go, say, a physician to see a surgeon. But, you know, we actually, when I worked in places, I now work in a hospital where our local other A&E has shut down. There have been no provisions made in medicine or surgery to have more doctors seeing the same people coming from A&E, yet the workload's doubled. What that means, sadly, is someone's acutely unwell and they haven't been seen to with urgency, or the nurse hasn't picked up that they're urgent, or A&E haven't said this patient's acutely unwell. People die.
Can you help us with your view about the out-of-hospital services and the suggestion, the premise that by increasing these, the need for acute services can be reduced?
I think it's really difficult if you've got an acutely unwell problem to then be treated in the secondary care, because no one says, oh, don't worry, in 2 months I'm going to have a heart attack. Can I come and get a statin, or can I get a tablet? You know, people get unwell and it's unexplained. If we knew exactly what we're going to get before we get it, that'd be great. You know, I'd love to know when I'm going to die. I can then plan accordingly. A lot of times when someone's acutely unwell, it's a surprise, it's a shock, you know, death comes, you know, no one knows it. And yeah, okay, if we help the morbidity of the people around us, yeah, we probably could help mortality. You know, there was a study a few years ago saying everyone should be on the magic 4 pill, give everyone a statin and aspirin, you know, beta blocker will reduce heart attacks. Yes, we could, maybe 10, 20, but we wouldn't have like the reductions in 100 people or 1,000 people. People would still be acutely unwell and they'd still need access to an ITU, you know, an emergency physician, an acute medicine. You can't just give everyone one tablet or one, you know, shake of a hand and hope everyone's okay. That's not how life works.
Finally, from me, do you have any comments or views about the closure or continuation of the maternity unit at Ealing Hospital?
To be honest, I've actually never been involved in maternity services at Ealing, so I wouldn't be able to be best placed to comment on that.
Thank you. I'm grateful. If you wait there may be questions from the commissioners.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. I want to enlist your help on health economics. First of all, health economics, I presume, but correct me if I'm wrong, embraces more than just the cost of medical provision, but actually should be looking at social costs as well. Is that right?
It should be, yes.
Right. I want to move to the next question. We had evidence last week, I've put this question to an earlier witness, although I think you weren't here at the time, that a member of the Royal College of Surgeons, Mr. Jonathan Ramsey, you may or may not know him, indicated that he has obviously intimate familiarity with standards at A&E, and he indicated that at one point there were no standards, but that he was part of a body that set standards very well within the recent few years after the scare at weekends not being covered. Now, the minimum standards now, are you aware of what the minimum standards that was set by his board or not?
Not by his board, but I know like the one main standard is every patient should be seen within 4 hours at A&E or have a decision made.
Yes, well, that's one criteria. There are two others that he mentioned. This is where the health economics is going to come in, I think, besides the time. He was suggesting that really it made sense, that's the word he used, it would be sensible to co-locate expertise so that you would have an on-site consultant, which was part of the problem highlighted in the media. An on-site consultant co-located with, for example, radiology facilities. Now, in order to do that, what he's saying about sense is you therefore bring those areas of expertise together in one centre. The point I was trying to put to him was whether, in fact, it should be contemplated that all A&Es have that facility. Now, I think there is a tension here, and I just want to know the answer if you have one. Does it make sense economically to have the same facilities, the high standards, at each A&E, rather than centralising?
Yeah, completely. I'm completely against centralising, and I think from all the A&Es I've worked at, you do have radiology on site. And as a doctor, we're not diagnosticians as they do in the States, where I've also worked, where someone comes in, you do for a cough, you do a full body MRI and CT. We're here socialist healthcare, so when someone comes in as a clinician, the whole point of a doctor is to examine them. And so when you centralise, you kind of take away things. So you're saying, well, this person may need this. However, we don't have those facilities, so we're going to have to send them to another place. And then you de-skill people. So if someone came in off the street who was unwell, as a doctor, because you don't see that, you'd be like, oh, I don't know what this could be, go home. I'm sure it's okay. So, yeah, but so as of now, all A&Es do have if they're not on-site radiologists, you can call the consultant in from home, and everyone, if they're home, has access to their screens, and they can actually see scans and reports on them, and you can call them up and say, there's been an urgent scan, can you tell us what the report shows, or what the scan shows?
So, on the basis of health economics, health defined as I did at the beginning, it's not going to cost more to have the same facilities I've just described at all A&Es.
Because it already exists in the infrastructure. Every hospital has a radiology department, and every hospital has a radiologist consultant and registrar. And they're all on call anyway. They may not be on site at 2 a.m, but they're there. They're only a telephone call away, and they get paid to answer their phone and look at the scan. So if you're saying instead of them being at home, you want them to be on site, we're already paying them to work. From wherever they are in the world, they're being paid. So if you said, actually, we want them to come in on site, we think that's going to reduce waiting times, that's going to reduce the time it takes for a report to come through, then we're already paying for that service, so that should be fine. If any, health economically, yes, it makes sense for them to be on site.
Thank you.
Yes, continuing on this thing about centralisation of services, I presume when you say you're against centralisation, you're not including stroke and what's the other, trauma, and there's the other one where they already have done, and obviously that's worked. You're talking about the broader sweep of other
I'm talking
services.
About people coming in and not being, and saying this isn't an A&E, go 20 metres down the Rhine or 12 miles away. That.
So, let's take West London, for example. Supposing you were going to go from if you were going to be talking about centralisation, then the health economics side of it means that you'd be talking about not just centralising the flow of patients, but you'd have to centralise an availability of beds and resources, and you'd be talking about an enormous hospital, yeah?
Yes. And when you talk about that, as I've already discussed, from published literature, which they're using to teach public health economics, hospitals greater than 300 beds aren't efficient. And they've said when you merge hospitals and you have lots of managers, what the studies have shown is it becomes more inefficient, because now everyone thinks someone else is doing something and someone else is doing something else. And that's, again, not a far-gone thought, it's evidence.
Yes. And you did refer right at the beginning to a book of some statistics.
It's in my bag, actually. It's health economics. I'll bring it.
Can you make that available to us? That would be really helpful. Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. Right, well, I'm not going to read that and ask you another question. Thanks very much.
I'm afraid mine's just a very short question along the same theme. Again, Jonathan Ramsey and others have spoken about this need to centralise, if you like, or, not only because of investigation, but also because you have to have a backup of individual specialities. This, again, because we no longer treat general surgeons anymore. I mean, basically, they're abdominal surgeons, aren't they? And a so-called general surgeon will only go so far. And also, for example, we now have the duty urologist. When I qualified, we didn't have a duty urologist. It was handled by the surgeon on call. So, firstly, do you think, yes, we do have a need for each hospital to have those subspecialties on call or in the hospital? And secondly, your personal experience working at Ealing in A&E, have you ever felt short of those acute specialities? Felt vulnerable because you couldn't call on one of those particular subspecialties?
Well, with the first question, I was working at Barnet Hospital where they've merged with Chase Farm, and Chase Farm's lost their A&E. And so if anyone comes acutely unwell to Chase Farm, they get immediately sent to Barnet. And unfortunately, I had a patient, I was doing general surgery night shift, who came in with a torsion of his testicles, and he needed an urgent operation. Now, his fertility's dropped by 50%. If there was an A&E in Chase Farm, he would have had that operation straight away.
If I remember correctly, it's alert theatre when the GP rings in suspecting one, isn't it?
So, yeah, so he's, and okay, he's still alive, he didn't have cancer, life's, but I wouldn't be happy if that was me. It is, and I think, and he was so nice about it, he was, like, what can I do, it happens. So, yeah, I do think, I think all doctors should have a core set of skills they should know. So what I mean by that is, it's not good enough if you're a surgeon to say you can't read an ECG or you don't know how to do an ABG. I think every doctor should have, like, maybe 30 things that, regardless if they're the consultant or they're an F1, so they've just qualified or they've got 50 years of experience, they should know. Because I think then what's the difference between someone having a cardiac arrest in front of a lay person and a doctor?
So when you were working at Ealing, you felt that, traditionally would be done by, not traditionally, nowadays, acute torsion would be done by urologists, but of course you'd expect any surgeon to do that. At Ealing, did you feel exposed that you didn't have that backup?
No, because even now, like same in other hospitals, only general surgeons, the one urologist thing that they should be able to is a torsion. Yeah. So it's one of those skills that they have to have, and if they don't feel confident, they have to call the consultant in. And at Ealing, when I worked there, both in general surgery and in general medicine, I've never felt unexposed. I know that I've got senior support that will come in and will cope and will come in. Because at the end of the day, especially as a doctor, it's not about my feeling or, my heroics, it's about the patient's safety.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Phil.
You're welcome.
Thank you.